Welcome on into a live edition of Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, following the NFL draft, talking about some free agent targets for Atlanta, some cut candidates as well. Sorry, we are in the frozen tundra of Chat Sports. Long story short, not all the studios are properly weathered or heated. I would honestly estimate that in this room right now, it is 55 to 60 degrees, somewhere in the high 50s. So Moose and I went live a little early today, mostly to avoid getting frostbite. So we're going to break down everything for the Dirty Birds. But as always, shout out your city for me in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from. We're going to jump into the first segment in a few minutes, but I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to file on in since we did jump the gun a little bit, which I think helps offset a few of the times we allegedly started late. But now we're getting early, so early bird gets the worm. Shout out your city for me, though. I've got Philip tuning in from Augusta, Georgia. Boyd is in Boise, Idaho. Brian is tuning in from Pennsylvania. Ammon K, it's May. Ammon K. It's not 55 degrees outside. It is just in this room. I can't describe it enough. This is as close as I've ever felt to walking into like an indoor freezer without it being an indoor freezer. It actually, you want a real comparison? Moose, feel free to back me up on this. It feels like an ice rink right now. I'd say it feels colder than being in a hockey arena.
As someone who has worked in food industry and had to go into walk-in freezers, it's about as close a comparison as you will get. We actually had the Chat Sports guys take a thermometer, a digital thermometer.
Yep.
It was 61.5 degrees here, and that's not even the coldest part of
we are in the belly
office.
of the beast right now, I'd say. Actually, behind that wall is truly the belly of the beast, but we are one off of it. So, yeah, it's our personal, issue. Okay. Brian, is there any more news on the Jalen Ramsey situation? By the way, did you guys see how many different variations of Jalen there was in the draft? There was, I think 5 or 6. Jalen, Jalon, Jalen Walker, Jaylen, Jaylin. I think that might be all the Jalens out there. Do you have a preferred Jalen? I like a simple Jalen. That's what I think of when I think, hey, my name is Jalon. That's how I would spell it initially.
If I had my choice, it would be Jaylen.
Okay. That's fine with me too. Boomstick, good to see you. We've got North Carolina here. Octavius is in Punta Plata, Dominican Republic. Boomstick, just a question. You think Jalen Walker is a bust? Boomstick, that's a good question. Save that for our mailbag, though. Throw a hashtag Falcons in at the end of that question. That way, producer Moose can pull that question and throw it on screen for everyone watching to see. Over 100 people tuned in, 12 likes. Click that like button. One last question before we jump into our first segment for our live show today. Will an Atlanta Falcon get 10-plus sacks in 2025? Is the double-digit sack drought going to end? Last guy to do it was Vic Beasley, and that was a decade ago. Does the drought end this year? Whether it's one of the rookies, which would be ambitious, not very common for a rookie to get 10 or more sacks. Let me just rattle off the last few names that have done that. 1 second. Meanwhile, Moose, you want to give a couple of shout-outs to those people in the chat right now? And tell them about this part on screen?
100%. Hey, by the way, if you do have a question for Petey, make sure you use hashtag Falcons. You have to use hashtag Falcons in order for our system to recognize it. So it's not just us being, super orderly and hey, you have to do this. And no, the system needs hashtag Falcons. I did see a couple in here about Xavier Watts. If you want to know more about the best safety in the NFL in 3 years' time, just a Notre Dame guy myself, make sure you used hashtag Falcons. Chris, what up? Philip, Boomstick, good to see you. D-Fish, Breyer, Hyrax, Mason. There it is, Mason. Way to go.
All right, here we go. Let's look at rookies with 10 or more sacks their rookie season. I don't think it's as long of a list as we would like it to be in recent history. So, any guesses on the last player to do this? Quick trivia. Last rookie to get 10 or more sacks. Danielle Hunter did not accomplish this. You got to go back not too long ago, but not too recent. Micah Parsons in 2021. So like 22, 23, 24. The last 3 years, no rookie has gotten 10 or more sacks. Before that, Josh Hines-Allen and Max Crosby in 2019. Then Bradley Chubb in 2018, and Joey Bosa in 2016. So since 2016, since the first year of the Trump administration, we've had, 2 presidents since then. We've only had 5 players as a rookie get 10 or more sacks. That's a bit ambitious, but it's not impossible. I'm not going to say it's never been done, but, since 2011, only 7 players have. Von Miller and Aldon Smith joining that crew as well. So I'm going to say no, but I think we get 3 players over 6 sacks. Leonard Floyd, James Pearce, and Jalon Walker. I'll put that out there, clip that, come back to me in January. Coming up on today's show, we got some cut candidates to look at, some free agent targets, and then that mailbag like Moose was telling you all about. Use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, your Super Chat goes on screen for everyone watching to see. It's a great way to support the channel if you like the free content we provide. If you're unable to Super Chat, that's perfectly fine. Just like the video and use hashtag Falcons to get your question in the mix. All right, let's get into our first segment. I want to talk about some cut candidates coming out of the NFL draft. Bad time for hiccups. Rel Scott's got a question. John, you put hashtag Falcons just by itself in there. Throw a question on after that, John. That way our software can, pull it and throw it on screen. D Fish, thank you for your question. We got Bijan Better. Love it. All right, 135 people tuned in, 28 likes. Once we get to 30 likes, 2 more people like the video, we are going to start our first segment. So as soon as we get 2 more likes, we're jumping into some cut candidates for the Dirty Birds. 1 like away, 1 like away. Moose, can you clarify? Ammon K says, by the way, PD, the X is pronounced in Xavier Watts, Xavier.
Technically correct. He does go by Xavier, but there's multiple times when you would hear the players, the coaches, and the announcers at Notre Dame say Xavier. So I think he answers to both. If you wanted to be technically correct, it's Xavier.
If he walked in this room right now and I would go, hey, I'm Matthew, nice to meet you.
He says Xavier.
I will call him Xavier.
Okay.
I've got a cousin named Xavier. It's on my Canadian side, so he's like a French Canadian, and he's Xavier. Yeah, so I know a couple of different variations of Xavier. But Xavier it is. All right, let's jump into our first segment. What's going on, everyone? Coming up on today's show, I want to talk about some cut candidates for Atlanta following the NFL draft. But super quick, I want to get to 36,000 subs. We are very nice, 69 away, I know, but still, if you haven't yet, lock yourself in for the best free Atlanta Falcons YouTube coverage out there. So the first cut candidate I want to look at is a former second-round pick by Atlanta. It is outside linebacker Arnold Ebiketie. I'm not going to go as far to say that this would be a lock to happen. That seems a very bit premature, but I do want to put it on your radar because Atlanta added not 1, not 2, but 3 players at outside linebacker since the start of the offseason. They signed Leonard Floyd in NFL free agency. They drafted Jalon Walker, who Jeff Ulbrich, who by the way is $100,000 poorer now, said is going to play outside. And James Pearce, who they traded back into round 1 for, is definitely an outside linebacker coming out of Tennessee. Last year, for reference, 5 outside linebackers made that initial 53-man roster. So let's all assume that Leonard Floyd, Jalon Walker, and James Pearce are locked to make the roster. That's 3. I'm going to toss in Braylon Trice, who's a 3rd-round pick last year who missed the entire year due to a torn ACL. So if we have 4 locks right there, if we agree on those 4 names, Arnold is barely hanging on. He's the number 5 outside linebacker if we just go off of how many guys from that spot made the roster less than a year ago. So maybe he is lucky number 5, and that's that. But I also would not rule out the Falcons going, okay, we're going to go with just 4. I would not bet on Ebiketie getting cut, but don't forget that when September gets here, there's always a couple of surprise cut candidates. And maybe with the additions of James Pearce and Jalon Walker, the Falcons feel like we've given Ebiketie 3 seasons. He's never developed into a full-time starter for us. We want to give that roster spot to someone else at a different spot. And we've got 3 young players who we recently drafted, in Braylon Trice, Jalon Walker, and James Pearce Jr. So, unfortunately, he's the odd man out. The only way I feel like Ebiketie become an absolute lock to make it is if they move Walker to like inside linebacker halfway through training camp. Maybe they feel like, all right, we maybe got ahead of ourselves a little bit. Let's keep him at inside, but we'll treat him like Caden Ellis with a bunch of blitz packages. And on third down, we can kick him outside. But if he does move to inside, well, that frees up one more spot for the outside linebackers, and that's where Ebiketie can really cement himself. Floyd, I feel like, has kind of gone under the radar as a signing, so let's just remember that Atlanta signed former top 10 pick by the Chicago Bears out of UGA, Leonard Floyd, who has been very consistent the last 4 years despite hopping around a little bit. He was great for who? Raheem Morris in LA back in 2021 when they won the Super Bowl, putting up 9.5 sacks. And then since then, 9 sacks, 10.5 sacks, 8.5 sacks. You may not get double-digit sacks from him next year, but if you can get more than 6.5 sacks, that would be life-changing for Terry Fontenot because he has never seen that before as the Atlanta Falcons GM. Okay, so Arnold, I think, is a little bit on the hot seat right now with 2 players at his position getting drafted and a free agent signing and a third-round pick from last year making more or less his debut this year given how early he tore his ACL a season ago. So between the top 3 dogs on this pass rush, who do you think is going to get the most sacks? I'm going to go with the veteran, Leonard Floyd. Walker may have a little bit of an adjustment period playing outside at the next level, given he did not do that a ton last year in Athens. Pearce, I think, is going to also have a little bit of an adjustment period as well, going from a speed-dominant player to a speed and power-dominant player, because you got to have both, I think, to be successful. So give me the guy who's done it year after year at a high level in Leonard Floyd. So that's the first cut candidate I want to throw at you. Let's talk about another veteran player who could be on the hot seat, and that is cornerback Dee Alford. Initially, the Falcons were not primed to bring him back, right? They did not place a tender on him. They let him test the open market. Ultimately, they decided to re-sign their starting nickel from a year ago. Now, at the time being, I'm going to put Clark Phillips in at the starting nickel position, but I think this is going to alternate frequently. I think we're going to have a threesome. Clark Phillips, Dee Alford, and Billy Bowman all competing for the nickel position. Usually cost you way more than a nickel for a threesome, but I think those 3 guys are going to be somewhat close to even Stevens. Like, Billy Bowman's going to be at the back of the pack. He's a rookie. He's a 4th-round pick. He's making the switch from safety to nickel. But if they decide, hey, from what we saw to Bowman in the OTAs and minicamp portion, and we really like the way Clark Phillips has developed, I wouldn't kill the idea of Billy Bowman and maybe another certain UDFA, another rookie that's a UDFA, Kobe Bryant. The Falcons go, we never really were all that in on bringing Alford back. We decided to, but much further down the road. And we drafted Bowman. We signed arguably one of, if not the best undrafted free agents in the entire 2025 class. Cornerback out of Kansas, Kobe Bryant. Multiple Big 12 Player of the Year nominations and awards. So if he moves inside and you've got 2 rookies competing with Clark Phillips, Dee Alford might be the odd man out. They may decide, from what we saw last year and what we're seeing in camp right now, we're just ready to hand the reins over to a younger player who may have a longer career here, rather than just try and wash and rinse and repeat what we got out of our below average nickel play a season ago. So Dee Alford with 2 guys coming in at his spot, that definitely puts a little bit of pressure on him for his job security. We're going to look at my third and final cut candidate in just a brief moment. But if you want to get a Jalen Walker jersey or even a James Pearce jersey, go to chatsports.com/ATL rookies. I put this link in the comments and description of today's video. So if you want to add to your Falcons wardrobe with a brand new jersey so you can stop wearing your Matt Ryan or Julio Jones jersey, get hopefully the new face of the Falcons defense in one of these two guys at chatsports.com/ATL rookies. This link is in the comments and description of today's video. You guys are going to rage quit this video when I show you this next name. I put Kirk Cousins on there. Here we go. I'm walking in. I feel like Jon Snow right now. I put Kirk Cousins on there. And I put him on there at the end for a few reasons. One, of the three, I think it's probably least likely to happen. Two, I included him because it doesn't seem like there is going to be a clear-cut, obvious trade destination for him. And the Falcons have expressed some level of interest in moving him. Raheem Morris said if it's good for Kirk and it's good for us, we'd explore that opportunity. So initially, Atlanta was like, Kirk's our backup. Then they kind of changed their tune a little bit to, well, if it's a good deal for us, we're open to it. We're like, well, we knew this all along. Why are you pretending like you wouldn't want to trade him? You have Michael Penix. It doesn't make sense. But I include Kirk Cousins because if the Pittsburgh Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers, there's not a very clear and obvious open quarterback vacancy out there. And then the Falcons are left with a decision. Are we going to stand by our word, which is we're comfortable with keeping Kirk as our backup? And that's not, I think, the worst thing in the world if Kirk is comfortable with being the backup. But if the season rolls around and Kirk is having a little bit of a temper tantrum, and he's been a good sport about it. He showed up to voluntary practices, so we don't have great reason to believe he will have a little bit of a hissy fit. But if the coaching staff is recognizing early on in training camp, hey, he's not really bought in on being a backup. You know, we're going to these quarterback meetings, and we want a backup who's there to help Michael Penix get ready. And Kirk is there to help himself get ready. I don't think it's a good fit. The Falcons may decide, we're just going to let you go. Which sounds crazy because they picked up his fifth year. Sorry, they held on to him after the fifth day of the new league year, took on a $10 million roster bonus as well. But we saw the Texans tell Deshaun Watson, and not apples to apples scenarios, but we saw the Texans tell Deshaun Watson, just stay away. And that's not what's going on here because Deshaun requested a trade, and Kirk has not formally requested a trade, but he also met with Arthur Blank for an hour to say, I want to start. So that sounds like a long way to say I would like to be traded. And if the Falcons don't want a hostage on their roster and there is no trade partner, I wouldn't be shocked if they tell Kirk, here are your options. Either, soldier up and be a good backup and put a, smile on your face and accept this new role. That's option one, which I think Atlanta would not be opposed to, but they need Kirk to be complicit in that, right? They need him to buy in on being a backup, not pouting because he's no longer a starter. That's option one. It requires a little bit of give and take on both sides. Option two, someone gets injured in training camp and Atlanta quickly trades him away. Option three, they tell Kirk, we want you to be a backup. You clearly aren't interested in being a backup. So stay at home. We're going to pay you. We're going to pay you to sit on your couch. And we're going to hope that someone gets injured. And if that injury pops up, stay ready, and we'll trade you to that team. Option four, the Falcons decide we're going to move on altogether. We're just going to rip the Band-Aid off, and we're going to bite the bullet, and we're just going to cut our losses. We overplayed our hand a little bit. We tried to get a trade done. We ultimately didn't get a trade offer in, or Kirk wouldn't waive his no-trade clause, whatever it comes down to. But we're not going to hold on to someone who doesn't want to be here. And that, of course, is a contingent on Kirk not wanting to be there. And I can't say for sure if he doesn't want to be there. But I can say that when you meet with the owner to go play for another team, to me it signals you don't want to be there. All right. If you have not yet, click that subscribe button. Hop aboard. We're going to keep you guys informed and entertained for the rest of the offseason on the Dirty Birds. And if you have also not yet, shout out your city for me in the chat because I love the end of the video crew. So this is a great way for me to see, who watches all the way to the end and our new subscribers, where people are tuning in from. How pissed are people? I bet the chat is furious. There it is, yeah. People get so mad every single time I bring up Kirk. Someone I was blown away by this one. Someone was like, "You're so biased for Kirk Cousins. It's insane how much you love him." And I was like, "Whoa, I don't think that could be any further from the truth for the way I've talked about Kirk Cousins the last 3 months."
Do you also shop at Kohl's and have an abundance of Kohl's cash? Because that's where Kirk shops. Actually, this is where his wife shops.
I am not a Kohl's person, but I am a khakis guy. And I feel like then I would fit well with the Kohl's group. All right, next segment on the show. Honestly, for anyone that's just tuning in, we're filming today in Studio E of Chat Sports. It's probably 58 to 60 degrees in this room. The thermostat has been broken for like 2-3 months now at this point, and it's just gotten worse and worse. And we were all hoping, well, once it gets warmer, maybe the temperature outside will kind of pour inside. No, it's so cold. So I'm kind of I wear a freaking quarter zip and hands in my pockets. Next up on the show, let's talk about free agent targets. I forgot my own show. Free agent targets. Who could Atlanta be targeting after the NFL draft? We do have a mailbag afterwards. That's going to be in about 15 minutes. So if you have any questions you would like to ask, use #Falcons or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you skip the line. We guarantee your question, your comment, your idea, your take gets on screen. For all 265 people hanging out with us at the moment, we have 64 likes. Can we get to 70 likes? 6 more people, click that thumbs up button, and then we're going to get into some free agent targets for Atlanta. Mr. Ha is getting a question in. Chris, it's the weight loss, not the thermostat. I would agree if there were not other skinny bitches in this office that said, no, it's the thermostat. So I miss the blubber right now. I'm not going to lie. You know what's funny, by the way? I don't know if this is funny for me to share, but before I hopped in the studio, I was trying to remember the first ever Falcons Today video I filmed. It was about Madden ratings going into the 2022 season in August. Yeah, that tells you a lot about, or maybe it was July. But either way, that tells you what the summer is like here when it comes to the NFL news and rumors world. But I looked at the video. I wanted to see kind of how I looked back then versus now. And I looked at the comment section. I was torn to shreds in the comment section. Not about the weight, just they hated me. And I was like, glad I got off to a very good start with everyone here. So that was a fun trip down memory lane. But I like to think, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say apples to apples to the pros or to professional sports. If you work in the entertainment industry, and I think when you're on YouTube, that's kind of the nature of the game. You want to be entertaining. Then you sign up for people saying whatever they want about you and having the ability to brush it off. Just like if you are in professional sports, people are paying to see you. They don't get away with murder, but you make millions of dollars. The trade-off is people then can make a living talking crap about you. So pick. Do you want to be a nobody and just be a salesman? Or do you want to make a lot of money, but there are going to be people who make their livelihoods talking about you? So whenever people say mean things to me in the comment section, I wouldn't say I'm a weirdo and I like it, but I definitely don't get rage quit and go this is fucking bullshit. But I will reply if they're just factually wrong, because that does irk me.
I mean, I've been a big fan of self-degradation for a long time.
Yeah.
If you can make fun of yourself, everybody else is just going to kind of be like, all right, you kind of took the fun out of it.
Yeah.
But even so, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Yep. All right, let's talk about free agent targets. So I'm ready when you guys are ready. 73 likes. That was my football jersey number freshman year. B-team Bombers, baby. Here we go. How many times have you heard this over the last week and change? The 2025 NFL Draft is in the books. It is one of the worst sports cliches we have. But with being over, I do want to peek at some free agent targets for Atlanta because after May 1st, any signings do not count for or against your future compensatory draft picks. So, quick background here. If you lose a bunch of players in free agency, you get comped for that in the next year's draft with comp picks, which range from rounds 3 to 7 based on how good the player is, how big of a contract they signed, and how well they played that next season. It's a secret formula that the NFL has. So a lot of teams may wait till after May 1st to sign players because it does not offset any departures they had from free agency. Because if you sign players and lose players in free agency, they kind of cancel one another out. So with Atlanta making 5 selections in the draft, I want to look at some remaining roster holes that could be filled with a few veteran players out there. So let's get started by looking at my first of 4 free agents, starting with Za'Darius Smith, defensive end who played for the Browns and Lions last year, traded midseason to Detroit after they lost Aiden Hutchinson. So some background on Za'Darius Smith. Last year between 2 teams, very productive still, 9 sacks. That would have been number 1 for the Falcons with room to spare. You can look at the last 4 years and sure, in 2023, just 5.5 sacks, but he generated a ton of pressure for Cleveland as well. I mean, only 5.5, but think about it this way. It was enough for Andrew Berry and the Browns to give him a 2-year contract. Now, he's hopped around the league a little bit, starting off in Baltimore, but he has also learned how to play as a defensive end and an outside linebacker. When he was with Green Bay and Minnesota, he played as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. Then when he played for the Browns in a 4-3 defense, he played as a defensive end. So he's got that ability to be a bit of a switch hitter. And I think that's something that Atlanta could be drawn to because while they did add James Pearce and Jalon Walker, they didn't really add a defensive end in the draft. And last year they added Rucororo, but I think he's more of a Grady Jarrett replacement than your traditional like Calais Campbell 5-technique defensive end. So Morgan Fox did come over from the Chargers in free agency, but if Terry is like, hey, I've already borrowed 2 draft picks from next year, I got to feel like this is a little bit of an all-in season for Fontenot. He may not hold back. He may not leave anything to chance. So with Za'Darius Smith on the market, he could go up there and he could play defensive end. He could rotate in, just save him for 3rd and long, just for passing situations. Use Zach Harrison and Morgan Fox on 1st and 2nd, and sprinkle in Smith for, 15 snaps a game. At his age, I still think he can get you a good amount of sacks. And right now, I don't think the Falcons can ever be satisfied with their pass rush. They should always be striving to improve, knowing their history at that spot. So that's the first free agent target I want to look at. Quick question. Is there going to be a Falcon that gets 10 or more sacks this year? If there is one, I'll go with Leonard Floyd. If you're thinking Jalon Walker or James Pearce, the last rookie to get 10 or more sacks in a year was Micah Parsons in 2021. No one's done it the last 3 years. In fact, only 5 players have done it since 2016. I'll let you guys chew on that, and I'll give you the other 4 players at the end of the video, so a little impromptu mid-video trivia. The next guy is a player we've talked a ton about during the offseason. It is cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. He is still a free agent. I still don't really know why. The only thing that I can make sense of for why he is on the market is that shoulder injury he suffered last year might be worse than people are expecting it, and he's not doing a great job of passing or flying through medicals. But looking at Atlanta's cornerback room, they did not add a traditional corner in the draft. So if they were eyeing a corner who went before them in the draft, maybe after a few picks of DBs with Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman and a couple of really good UDFA DBs coming in, they are still not satisfied at the cornerback position. And that's where Asante Samuel could be a really good fit for the Falcons. He played in a Chargers defense last year that used a ton of zone. The Falcons were not far behind him in their zone usage. So from a schematic fit, I think it'd be, perfect, like a glove. And then from a production standpoint, look at what he did his first 3 years. 3 consecutive seasons with two interceptions and double-digit pass breakups. Now, last year, season cut short due to a shoulder injury. But if the Falcons feel comfortable with the shoulder and his price tag drops a bunch, would you rather have Asante Samuel at nickel, or would you rather have Dee Alford and Clark Phillips? In a vacuum, I'm taking Asante Samuel. When you factor in the development for Phillips and for Billy Bowman and maybe Kobe Bryant, one of the more premier UDFA signings, I can understand why you want to go with the youngins, go with the homegrown guys, right? Trust your farm system a little bit. But I use the same logic I used for the Za'Darius Smith, possible acquisition. Terry Fontenot took a first and a fifth from next year's draft. I get the sense that Fontenot feels some pressure to deliver this year. And if he wants to go get a instant upgrade, Samuel, Watts, Bates, Terrell, Hughes is a no-fly zone. We're going to talk about 2 more guys in just a moment, but we are 20 subs away from 36,000. Help me reach this next milestone. Click that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Make sure you are getting the best free Atlanta Falcons YouTube coverage available. Third guy I want to put on your radar is a center. It is Nick Harris. Now, this is not as splashy as the first 2 guys, but I think this one might be a little bit more realistic than the first 2. For one, he'll be way cheaper than Smith and Samuel. But for 2, he might come at an actual bigger position of need. He was a 5th-round pick by the Browns back in 2020 out of the University of Washington. He's had some bad injury luck. In the 2022 preseason, he tore his ACL when he was slated to be the starter, not even 5 snaps into the first preseason game. So immediately he is off the table for all of 2022 when he was supposed to be the team's starting center. Fortunately for him, he does not have a starting job when he comes back in 2023. The guy who replaced him played very well, and he has been the starter since then. But if the Falcons feel like we should probably bring in a little bit more competition for our Drew Dahlman replacement, Ryan Neusel, I could see a guy who is supposed to be a team starting center and who has played well when called upon, but just after that injury, he fell to the back of the depth chart and he never really had a chance to climb back up again. But that doesn't mean he's no longer a good center. It just means he had an opportunity, he got injured, and then that opportunity never came back with the Browns. And then in 2024, unfortunately, he broke his leg in an Eagles game early in October. So if the medicals check out, and that's a big if, a torn ACL, a fractured fibula, those are big medical concerns right there. But if he is healthy, I don't think it's a bad idea to bring in a little bit more competition for Neusel, right? Worst case scenario, you feel like you have a more competent backup with Harris, who was supposed to be a starting center for the Cleveland Browns, if not for injuries. We're going to look at my last free agent target, and I guarantee you it's going to catch you off guard. But first things first, if you want to get a Jalen Walker jersey, if you're a big Georgia fan, or if you're like me and you love the Vols, and you want to get a James Pearce Jr. jersey, go to chatsports.com/ATL rookies. It's a pre-order, so once the jersey numbers are selected by the players, they'll ship the jersey out to you. But you got to use this link, chatsports.com/ATL rookies. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. It's a great way to support the channel as well while getting a Fanatics Atlanta Falcons jersey. So let's look at my 4th free agent target. And I'm going to go with a kicker, Eddy Pineiro from the Carolina Panthers. Used to be the Chicago Bears kicker. Then they brought in Cairo Santos, and kind of like Nick Harris, Pineiro got injured, and then the job was just never there when he got healthy again. But I feel like we have to discuss a possible kicker acquisition with how poorly Younghoe Koo kicked last year. Pineiro, by the way, you want a fun fact? He missed a few kicks towards the end of the year for Carolina, but he, for a moment in time, was the NFL's all-time leading kicker in field goal percentage with a correct minimum number of kicks. Now, then he missed 1 or 2 kicks, and when it comes down to percentages, you miss 1, you got to hit 3 more to kind of make up for it. But if the Falcons want to bring in some competition for a kicker who was not good last year, Pineiro, I think, would be a really good starting spot right there. He's done a good job with Carolina, and I just feel that competition for Younghoe Koo should be addressed. I don't think they should just ignore what happened last year and go, it's a fluke. No. As a kicker, it's very black and white. You make it or you miss it. As a quarterback, it's not so black and white. Right? Great pass, but the receiver drops it. But no one ever knows that would have been a touchdown pass, or it goes to the receiver's hands and it's intercepted, but you look bad for the interception. Kicker, it's make or miss. And there were way too many misses last year for Koo to just waltz on into Flowery Branch for off-season workouts and go, yep, it's my job, and I don't have to worry about anyone else taking it from me. I would bring in some more competition. So what is your confidence level in Koo bouncing back? Scale it for me 1 to 10. I'm going to put it at a 5.9. I want to believe it, but sometimes this happens to kickers. They get the yips, and then they just never quite bounce back from it. So after looking over the 4 free agent targets, I really couldn't find a 5th one that I felt was realistic, and so I didn't want to just toss one out there for shits and giggles. But after looking over those 4 guys, let me know who you would like to see Atlanta sign. One of them, someone I left off my list. Scroll on down, be a part of the conversation in the chat, and I'm going to sign off and see everyone next time. All right, mailbag time. There is the Germany kicker. That is true. I didn't want to say that. Maybe I should have rephrased that. How about this? There should be more competition brought in. That's my mistake. I didn't want. I probably implied that it was just Younghoe Koo. I just meant let's bring additional competition in. My mistake.
Fun fact about Asante Samuel Jr. with his injuries, he suffers from a condition called stingers, which is a nerve issue where the nerve the nerve gets pressured when the muscle contracts and then compounds again, and it causes severe pain and immobility in that particular area. Usually happens between the neck and the shoulder blade, which is very, very painful. And if anybody knows if they've had a stiff neck, it's like that on steroids.
I have heard that he's had stingers since high school, and that's what's going on here. So
correct.
If it can get worked out, I think it'd be a fun signing. But when you're unsigned and it's May 1st and you're young, there's probably something deeper to the story.
The doctors also say that it is not something that they think he's going to be beating anytime soon.
That sucks. All right, mailbag coming up next. Hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. We got 2 Super Chats in that last segment. So we'll throw those on screen for you all. If there's questions in them, we'll give you a full answer during our mailbag. But for anyone tuning in right now, we have a mailbag coming up in 2 or 3 minutes. Use hashtag Falcons somewhere in your message in the chat or Super Chat, and you skip the line, and we guarantee it gets on screen for everyone tuned in to see. All right, we'll take a peek at those 2 Super Chats. Thank you to those of you that sent in Super Chats, as Tony Romo sent in a Super Chat. There's no mailbag, Tony? There's no mailbag. I don't know what we're about to do for the next 20 minutes, because that's going to throw my plan off. I've got all right, quick personal story time. I'm flying Southwest to my brother's wedding tonight. They have sent me no less, and I'm not being dramatic, I'd say 30 notifications today with updated departure time, boarding time. They just change it by 3 to 5 minutes. They keep moving it back and forth, though. Usually it keeps getting worse and worse. They've gone all the way to 20 to 30 minutes late to slowly bringing it back to slowly pushing it up. It's driving me nuts all day. Mr. Haha, $10 Super Chat. With Tua coming off a bad injury, chance of bad plays, and maybe Quinn Ewers being a bust in a draft, what's the likelihood of a 1-for-1 trade with the Falcons? Kirk Cousins for Jalen Ramsey. Mr. Haha, great question. I'm going to save my answer for the mailbag, but I like where the creativity's at with this question right here. So, Mr. Haha, thank you so much for your support of the channel. EHYGO. Hello. Love the video, dog. I believe our team might be Super Bowl ready We have answered all positions of need. I think if we hit on Pearce and Walker, it might be lights out. If Watson, Bowman are hits, we are a dynasty. A dynasty is a bit ambitious. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, but I still think there's plenty of potential for Atlanta to be a playoff winning team this year, right? I'm talking winning team, not just make the playoffs, not be some cute little 9-8 team that squeezes in at number 7. No, host a playoff game, win a playoff game. I think that's very much in the cards and an impossibility for the Falcons in 2025. I don't think that they are going to be a dynasty depending on what Billy Bowman at nickel does. Sorry to, be a party pooper, but that seems a bit ambitious. All right, 2 more super chats just flew in. Let's hit both those supers, and we'll hit them all again in our mailbag as well, Mr. Moose. We can start off with the first one we got from Mr. Haha. We got Tony Romo saying there's no mailbag. There is a mailbag, Tony. Pete Diddy. It's Pete Diddy, but Southwest, I kid you not, has updated the boarding time. They pushed it back 2 minutes. 2026 mock draft. I've got no idea. Can't tell you. Lenora Sellers is my good value pick to be the first quarterback taken. Tony. But put my layer above this layer, by the way, in GFX3. So I'm not behind it. No, there is no mailbag today. Tony, thank you for your super chat. And then we got one from P. Diddy as well, and then that mailbag. P. Diddy with a $2 super chat, and GFX3, my big cam is behind, but below the super chat layer. So just drag it up, and that way I'm on top of it. See, there we go. All right, we'll get to the P. Diddy super chat in a moment. But Southwest has actually pushed back my flight. That's very kind of them. Pushed back 20 minutes, so thank you. I'm a bit of a plane enthusiast, so whenever I see my planes delayed, first thing you got to do is find out where your aircraft is. And if that aircraft coming in is delayed, and if they're already in the air, then okay, it's not going to get pushed back too much. But the worst kind of delays, in my opinion, is when they're waiting on the flight attendant, because they always say, we're waiting for one more stewardess. They just landed in this terminal. They'll be here any minute. No, they landed in Timbuktu, and they're going to hike and canoe to DFW. I never buy that nonsense from them. Okay. 2026 mock draft. Can I give you a position? I don't know if I can really give you a player. Position for next year. You got to think pass rush still. Maybe corner. Pair with AJ Terrell. Could be offensive tackle. How about tackle to replace Caleb McGarry? I'll go with that. We got 2 more supers really quick. Kennard Drake. And then AFX. And then the mailbag gets underway. Could be tight end. That's a good one as well. Here, let's just say these for the mailbag. So yeah, we'll get to them in the mailbag. We'll re-hit all these super chats in the mailbag. The ones that have questions include earlier. The ones that are just more super chatty, include but towards the end. Yeah, that's one towards the end. But the first one, we can lead off with that one right there. We can just open it right now at that. We'll jump right into it. Just like that, yeah. All right, mailbag time. You ready? Do it. Get the next question ready, and we'll start with Mr. Haha's $10 super chat. It is mailbag time here on Falcons Today. I'm going to answer questions that came in during our live show, which airs Thursday afternoons. Mr. Haha with the $10 super chat. With Tua coming off a bad injury, chance of bad plays, and maybe Quinn Ewers being a bust in a draft, what's the likelihood of a 1-for-1 trade with the Falcons? Kirk Cousins for Jalen Ramsey. If they didn't sign Zach Wilson, I'd say it goes from 0% to a few percentage points. But they did add Zach Wilson, who, by the way, horrible jersey number choice. 0. Can't do that. This is not happening. It'd be fun, but that's a fantasy football trade. I really don't ever see that happening in all likelihood. But I still appreciate your super chat, and I like where your head's at when it comes to creativity. Archangel, who do you have getting cut out of the safety game? So can we peek at the safety depth chart real quick, Moose? Do we have that here? Let's look over the Atlanta Falcons safety depth chart, which, by the way, there's going to be some fluidity to this. Just as a couple of guys maybe switch positions, you know what I mean? Maybe they go from being a corner to a safety or vice versa. So guys are going to hop around a little bit. No, this is the not quite this one, Moose. Go to the 2 wide safety depth chart. It's all right. There you go. So looking at the safety room, who's most likely to get cut? Well, Bates and Watts, I think, are locks. So that leaves Fuller and DeMarco Helms to fight off some other guys. There's a good chance they do fight them off. Jordan Fuller was signed to a very cheap 1-year contract. So they're not really tied to him financially all that much. You know, a little bit of guaranteed money, but nothing crazy. So if a UDFA or that Benny Sapp, you know, someone else comes out and just, you know, blows their, you know, mind and rocks their socks off, then I could see Fuller being the last one out. If Helms doesn't really bounce back from that ankle injury well, which I think he will, then he could be the last one out. But who do you have getting cut? I'm going to say all 4 for now make the 53-man roster. Kennard, Drake, how effective will Pitts be this season? You know, I was watching a Twitter highlight yesterday of, I think it was, what game was it? It was Pitts' first or second year, and he had this great catch. I want to say like the Bills game on the road, where he just snagged a ball from behind him and just turned upfield and started running and ran over someone. I think that Kyle Pitts is going to be what he's been the last 3 years. He's going to have a few touchdowns. He's gotten 1 more touchdown every single season, but I don't think he'll be a 1,000-yard guy. I think towards the end of the year, we saw Charlie Werner start to have more of a presence on passing situations in the tight end formation. So I don't think it's going to be anything more than 800 yards and 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns. Next question coming in. What kind of season should we expect from Michael Penix? You know, I'm really high on Michael Penix because just coming out of Washington, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks in that draft. For reference, I think if Penix was in this year's class, he would have been the number 1 pick, and I don't think it would have been all that close. So I think Penix is going to show us a 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions type of year. D-Fish, how do you realistically see the Falcons using Jalen Walker in the defense in his first season? So the defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, said they plan to use him as an edge, right, as an outside linebacker. I thought they would use him as an inside linebacker and then kick him out to edge on 3rd and 10, right? So you can get all of your best pass rushers on the field. Or not even kick him out to edge, but then just send him on a blitz on 3rd and 10, and you've got Floyd and Pearce coming off the edge and Walker coming up the middle. But for making the switch, he's a little bit on the smaller side for being an NFL edge rusher. I think there could be a little bit of, you know, a learning curve to it. I could see a season where he puts up 3.5 to 4 sacks, but he still finds a lot of, valuable contributions in coverage and run stopping and just making sure everyone else is doing their job. So I think Walker may not have big wow production in year 1, but could ramp up as he gets more and more accustomed to being an outside backer full time. Let's go Dirty Birds. Could you see the Falcons trading for Kayvon Thibodeaux? So the Giants did pick up the 5th-year option on their former top 5, top 6 draft pick out of Oregon. He had a really strong sophomore season for the G-Men, 11.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Last year, a little bit of a step back, 5.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, but he did miss some time, so while availability is important, fair to say that had he played 17 games, he'd probably be closer to 9 sacks, which, listen, you don't have to always have more than you had the year prior to still be a good player. I don't think the Giants are really kicking the tires on a Kayvon Thibodeaux trade. They picked up his 5th-year option, so any team trading for him has to absorb that fully guaranteed contract for next year. So I'd put the likelihood of a Thibodeaux trade being very low. I think they wanted to see if they could get a 3rd for him during the draft. There were no buyers. Atlanta does not have a 3rd, or did not have a 3rd to offer. So maybe with a 3rd for next year's draft, the Falcons could get it done. But man, at that rate, Terry will have traded the 1st third, and fifth round picks from next year. I'd say it's very low chance that Thibodeau comes to Atlanta. Would you trade for the former top 10 draft pick by the Giants, though? Give me a Y for yes, give me an N for no in the comment section below. Let's move on to our next question. Bijan Better, how many total sacks do you think we get this year as a team? What did they have last year? All right, let me look up really quickly. I think last year like 31. Falcons, let me see. One moment. We'll cut this out. We don't need dead air. Falcons sacks. Second. Maybe I'm not going to find it as quick as I thought I would. No, maybe I did actually. Oh, no, that's actually not. Never mind. Okay. Let me just look it up. Sorry. I'm really killing my audience here. This is what I get for thinking I can work on the fly. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons had, someone's already spammed it probably 5 times in the comment section already. I think they had 31 sacks. We're going to find out how close of a guess that was. Last year, as a defense, the Atlanta Falcons had 31 sacks. I could have saved all of us that time. All right, here we go. Let's pick up where we left off. How many total sacks do you think we get this year as a team? Last year, after doing some research, the Falcons got 31 sacks. I'll say next season, Atlanta gets 40 sacks. Add on 9 more sacks, right? That's an extra half a sack a game. That seems reasonable. I'm not going to go as far to say as they're going to go all the nearly 50 sacks, but with the additions of Pearce, Walker, and Floyd, and the departure of Grady Jarrett and Matthew Judon, I think that could round out as a net result of 9 more sacks. So give me 40. Before we look at the other questions from today's mailbag, if you want to get a Jalon Walker jersey or a James Pearce jersey, use this link, chatsports.com/ATL rookies. It's a great way to support the channel, and you get a Falcons jersey from Fanatics. I put this link in the comments and description of today's video. So if you want to get a brand new Atlanta Falcons jersey, don't put it off. Be the first one at your tailgate, at your friend's watch party in August for a Falcons game with a brand new Falcons jersey. D-Fish, how do you realistically... Oh, I think we hit this one already. We'll go to the next one. Obi-Wan below me. That's a good trivia team name right there. Do you think Nick Nash will get significant snaps? No. He's a UDFA out of San Jose State. Started off as a quarterback, made the change. He was one of the better UDFA signings out there. No, and here's why. Kadiro Hodge and Casey Washington looked good in the preseason last year, and we didn't see much of them on offense. Let's not lose sight of when September gets here, it's Drake London and Darnell Mooney, and then a little bit of Ray McLeod. And those guys are going to make up, if healthy, 100% of the snaps. If someone gets injured, then the next guy up would be Casey Washington. But that is contingent on an injury. So significant? No. No, I truthfully do not. Aiden Stackhouse, if you were to predict James Pearce Jr. or Jalon Walker stats this year, what do you think they would be? I'll go with 4 sacks for Jalon Walker, and I'll say 6.5 sacks for James Pearce. For rookies, I know we're looking for more, but I think that's a good starting point right there for a guy who'd be playing a somewhat new-ish position, going to outside linebacker, and for Pearce to, get his feet wet in the NFL. 6.5 sacks in year 1, I'll take that every single day of the week. Aiden, thank you so much for your question. Next one rolling in here. Kennard Drake, what are you looking forward to return from IR? Oh, who are you looking forward to? I'm sorry. Well, DeMarco Hellams was on IR last season. Let me see who else was on IR to close out the year. Because they luckily really weren't too snake-bitten when it came to injuries. So last year to close out the season on injured reserve, the Falcons had, let's look at their IR team. DeMarco Hellams is like the first name. Braylon Trice, that's one. I'll probably lead off with Braylon Trice right now. Some other guys, Younghoe Koo, Troy Anderson. Rondale Moore's gone. Yeah, I'll go with Braylon Trice. We know nothing about this guy. So give me the 3rd-round pick from a year ago out of Washington. Dat1 Falcons fan, and then we'll round out with all the other super chats we've gotten so far. Tyler Algier and a 2026 3rd for Jalen Ramsey and a 2026 4th. I think the Dolphins are kind of set at running back. I'm just going to peek at their depth chart right now, but they drafted a running back in day 2 last year out of Tennessee, Jalen Wright. But I don't know if they feel compelled to add more running backs. They have Devon Achane, Jalen Wright, and they signed Alexander Madison and drafted Ollie Gordon. So, well, they do like to run that ball, and that's in that Shanahan system. I don't think that a running back is going to be the big needle mover. Sure, adding in a 3rd helps, but probably not going to be what the Dolphins are searching for. Want to say thank you to EHYGO for sending in a $20 super chat. Very ambitious. I love where your heart is at, and I love where your positivity is stemming from. I'm not quite there with the dynasty part being dependent on a 4th-round safety, but hey, I like what you're drinking, dude. AFX, why do they cut these? I don't know what they cut. I don't know. I thought this would be Falcons related. AFX, thank you for the super chat. I would go talk to your local veterinarian for this answer. I think we have 1 or 2 more super chats. We talked about Kennard Drake. P. Diddy, super chatting from behind bars. 2026 mock draft. I don't know. I'll toss out offensive tackle if they want to replace Caleb McGarry, or possibly tight end if they move on from Kyle Pitts. But I would lean towards tackle. That's just a position that goes round 1 more frequently than tight end does. Tony Romo, there will be no mailbag. This is the mailbag, Tony. I don't know, Jim. I don't know, Tony. You're watching it right now. Keep getting back to your golf game, though. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We're going to sign off, let you get on with the rest of your weekend, and I'll see everyone later with more Falcons news and rumors. All right. Are we all caught up on super chats? You're not going to believe this. Southwest has moved my flight earlier. So we went from 7:16 to 7:18 to 7:10. This has all happened, by the way, I kid you not, in the last 16 minutes. That's when I got the first notification of 30 today. So, it's unbelievable. That will do it. A little bit of NFL news. Jair Alexander would prefer to be cut than traded. I guess that's not so crazy because he wants to sign where he wants to go, but that's not how that works. So, all right, we're gonna sign off. Really appreciate everyone for hanging out with us, tuning in on your Thursday afternoon to our live, show for the Dirty Birds, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll see everyone later.